Hi guys, welcome to my kitchen. So it is December and that means it is totally time for Christmas drinks. So hopefully you have checked out my hot cocoa video that I posted last year. I've already made at least one batch of that, planning on another one here soon. But my next Christmas drink that I wanted to show you is eggnog. So I know that this is not everybody's favorite. It's one of those things where you either love it or you kind of hate it. But I made it from scratch last year and it was so good, so delicious. And if you're somebody that likes eggnog, you're really gonna love this recipe. So I hope you give it a try. To get started with, we have, surprise, egg yolks. So there are 6 egg yolks here that I have, and I'm going to put them in the bowl of my stand mixer. You can do this step by hand just with a whisk, but I just thought that this would be a little quicker, a little easier, and it will work while we are doing the rest of the recipe. And then half a cup of sugar is going to go in with that. And we're going to turn our mixer on and get that all nice and thick, and I was going to say frothy, but it's not necessarily frothy. So we're going to let that go, let that do its thing. While that's going on, we're going to go ahead and get our other ingredients going. You want to do like a medium-ish heat. You're definitely going to need a whisk here. 2 cups of whole milk. It's going to go in our pot or saucepan. 1 cup of heavy cream. This is not a recipe to try to save calories on, so make sure you're actually doing the heavy cream there. And then we are going to add half a teaspoon of nutmeg. Once I get my fingers to work here, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1 cinnamon stick. You could also replace the cinnamon stick with half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And then our last ingredient that's going to get added is our vanilla. If you have a vanilla pod laying around, that would be a great thing to just go ahead and split open and put in the milk mixture. If you don't happen to have a vanilla pod, like I don't have right now, you can just replace it with 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So I'm just bringing this to almost a simmer. You don't want to let it boil whatsoever. You're going to be keeping a pretty steady eye on it. I'm going to keep doing my egg yolks here. I want the egg yolks to get thick. So that's why we're doing the whisking on them. And we're going to let this simmer. And once I get it to the point where it's simmering, then what I'm going to do is I am going to temper my eggs and mix it all in and bring it up to the right temperature so that you don't have to sit here while I wait for all of this to happen. I'll have you come back in honestly probably about a minute or less once everything is starting to happen. Welcome back, guys. All right, so since you have been gone, my egg yolks have transformed into white, kind of frothy, and thick. You can tell as soon as you start working with it that it's thick. So mixing eggs is always one of those things where you're like, I don't know, is it there yet? It's one of those things, but let me tell you this. You can see how much lighter of a yellow these are, and that they're like frothy, and it's a different consistency than when you first put it in. Now it's still a little bit grainy because of course there hasn't been any heat applied to this, so those sugar crystals haven't been able to break down and melt. But you'll know when you're at that stage. It'll go from, is it there yet, to, yep, that's what she was talking about. So you'll know once you're there. So now what I'm going to do is start tempering my eggs. This is just at the point where it's wanting to boil, which is actually right where we want it. Should have been a little bit smarter and took this out of here. So you're gonna do a spoonful or a little drizzle, just a small bit of your milk mixture into your eggs. And if you've watched 1,000 cooking shows like me, you know that this is tempering. What you're doing is you are slowly and gently bringing the temperature of the egg yolks up. Now for this step, I am going to turn off the heat because I don't want this boiling away while I'm trying to get this taken care of. You want to be slow in this process and just have patience. It really doesn't take that long, but the reason that you're doing this is so that you do not end up with scrambled eggs instead of eggnog, because that's just not good. So anytime you are working with eggs going into something that you are cooking and the other thing is hot and the eggs are not, you're going to do this step where you're tempering it like this. And I'm doing it little by little. My egg yolks, of course, are getting less thick than they were. And essentially, you're just bringing up the temperature of those egg yolks. And you will start to feel as well, if you paid attention to how granular the sugar was before, that that's starting to melt off. Now at this point, I've put a significant amount of our custard mixture in there. So I'm just kind of gauging with the temperature of my skin how hot or not that is. This is now going to go back into the pan. My heat's not on right now, just to give me a little bit of extra time to work. I'm going to whisk this together, and then we are going to introduce our thermometer. This is technically a candy thermometer, but it's the kind that you can clip onto the side of the pan. The temperature that we're looking for here is going to be 160 Fahrenheit. So I'm going to go ahead and clip this onto the side of my pan. Whatever you do, make sure that you put this little holder guy so that he's holding this far enough up that it's not actually touching the bottom of the pan, because that will give you an incorrect reading, and we don't want that. So why we're doing this and why we're going to be paying attention to that, we're already at 100 degrees here on our mixture. This is the part where you're cooking the eggs, so this is what makes it safe to drink, because of course you're not technically supposed to eat or drink a raw egg. This is what gets us to that point where it's okay to drink it. So if you're wondering what this tastes like, it's basically like, I would almost call it a drinking custard, because it's kind of like that flavor that you get from a custard tart or like a really good vanilla pudding. That's the consistency that it feels like it has, but of course it's drinkable as opposed to eating it with a spoon. We're already just now past the 150 mark, so we are definitely getting on up to where we need to be. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and add in my vanilla. And I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but I can see the difference here since I've added those eggs in, just how much thicker it is, a little bit frothier. I'm hitting my thing. So we're about at the temperature where I could take it off. I am going to keep stirring it just a little bit longer because I want to give it some time to get just a little bit thicker. So I'm going to keep stirring this for maybe a minute, minute and a half. And then what I'm going to do at that point is pour it into my pitcher, cover up my pitcher, and let it sit overnight. If you can't let it sit overnight, at least give it a good solid 2 to 3 hours in the fridge. That's really going to give it time to thicken up and get nice and chilled and cool, and it's really going to be delicious. Just make a cup of it with a little bit of whipped cream on top, a little fresh nutmeg on there. Guys, I promise, if you like eggnog, you're gonna like this recipe. So I hope that you enjoy it. I hope it makes your Christmas just a little bit merrier, and have a wonderful day.